Okay, recording, sharing the screen with the world. Share. Yeah. Crush the screen. Okay. We're good here. Okay. Let's talk about aquaponics tonight. So we've built a couple of aquaponic greenhouses already. Had very good experience. I mean, the one thing that stands out is the extreme productivity that you can get out of a controlled environment like this, especially when you have things like fish, chickens, and mushrooms, other things in there.
Okay, well, welcome everybody to the open.
Okay, built one in 2015. That was the bigger workshop. Then added this aquaponic greenhouse to the CDCA Home 1. We have a module build system for this as well, so it's once again 4x8 modules that are now glazed, including both the walls and the roof sections. And there's some roof sections that also have openings, vents in them for purposes of climate control there for temperature, because you really got to have this thing open in the summer. Otherwise it's pretty hot. So what's the modular greenhouse concept here? We focus on all the use of the vertical space. In this prototype, we dug fish ponds 4 feet down, and we used vertical space to either 9 or 10 feet or so. So you're talking about 14 feet of vertical growing space that's got life in it, as opposed to, oh, now you have flat agriculture, right? What can you do? You can fit a head of lettuce in a square foot. You have a growing tower, you can fit 22 heads of lettuce in that, basically the tower volume. So like 10, 20, and then you're going down, you got fish down there as well, so you're adding productivity as well. So things like the towers are critical, fish ponds, growing beds, chicken coop, vermicomposting. We had some spirulina growing in there. You got the fish ponds, growing beds, hanging towers, duckweed and azolla troughs. So we also grew some duckweed and azolla. Strawberries do really well in aquaponics, so we had a few strawberries as well. But you can stack a lot of productivity inside a greenhouse like this. So we start with some polycarbonate glazing. You build the thing, so walls, here the walls in front were, I believe, 7 feet, and then 16-foot wall panels going up with the vents on top. So this is when we were building it. It's polycarbonate, double wall glazing. That's what it looked like after completion. That's what it looked like after our first planting. So this is bok choy. We had more of it than we ever thought. In here it's primarily bok choy. There's some lettuce here, but like 80-90% bok choy in here, but great. I mean, it grew like crazy. So this is what a planted grow bed looked like. What do we got? This is a diagram of the kind of trophic webs that are involved here. But into the towers, worms ended up in the towers. There's worms in the red worms. We had a bin of red worms. Maybe they got into the water, they got pumped up somehow, but somehow they ended up in the towers, the growing towers, which is great because they're processing waste. Now, if they fall into the water, the fish eat them. We can have ways to harvest the worms automatically, or harvest them so you can feed the fish, so you can start closing up the waste loops. If you talk about worms, I mean that could be vermicompost. You can I think in a way we will evolve this for a real home build is you've got the biodigester after which you've got fertilizer grade water. The output of a biodigester is fertilizer. So now you can be feeding that into the aquaponics and now you're growing your food again. So imagine that kind of closed loop cycle. Forget about the septic systems, the city water treatment plants and all that, which process great nutrients which could be used otherwise, and let's push the limit on how we can do that locally. So worms, humans, black soldier fly, larvae, we grew those to feed the fish, grew plants, etc. We had chickens, where the chicken droppings can be fed to worms, worms can be fed to fish, human waste can be processed, humans eat the eggs, humans eat the chickens. That's what it looked like in its full glory. In the full glory, in this example, we had vertical growing beds where we did hazelnuts. So in this, you're seeing 10,000 hazelnut starts, which we planted them out, in 1-inch deep pots. So each tray has like 100, and this was full of them. So we pumped water to the top, and this was the fish water. So you're getting fertilizer, and then it flows back to the fish beds. The same water is pumped into the towers to grow your plants, and back there I have the hydronic water heater for the ponds, which we discussed that yesterday, how we build that. Because in the winter the fish, they like 80 degrees year round to grow fast. If you were interested in high productivity, as in if you're trying to feed yourself, you can do that. That's the water dripping down into the pond. It's a very simple pond, dug with a backhoe, liner, and things like that. We used a hot water stove, hydronic stove. This is the hydronic system where basically we fed some of this hot water both into to heat our house, but also the fish ponds in the winter. So things would grow in there year round. It would never nowhere close to freezing or anything like that. And then the fish. So we seeded some fish in there. Pretty soon you start seeing babies. So this thing propagated from, we maybe put in a dozen fish in there, and after about 2 years we harvested a couple of 100 pounds of fish just from like a starter of a dozen or so. But they self-propagate. I mean, the little babies, a lot of them get eaten up by the rest of the fish. The other fish, the big fish, eats the little fish. It's for real. But enough of them survive that they keep propagating on their own. We had the chicken eggs going in there, so that's all good. We just had like 4 chickens. Potatoes. Mushrooms. Now this is extremely productive. For this you feed straw to the mushrooms. You put the spawn into buckets. You sterilize the straw by fermenting it in a big drum for a week. You take a big drum, fill it with straw, fill it with water, that ferments. So you have an overabundance of fermenting decomposition, and then you put in the spawn, basically the...
Stuff it in the tubes.
Yeah, so you stuff it then in the buckets.
And then you inoculate it.
Yeah, that nasty, smelly straw that's fermenting, it smells like ferment. You pack that into the buckets as hard as you can. You spread layers of mushroom spawn in there, which you buy from the store. You get a bag of spawn. You punch holes in a bucket. So some of those buckets you might see out there with the 1-inch holes drilled in them, the mushrooms end up growing through those holes. So you stack like 5 buckets one on top of each other, and the productivity is insane. We got like, I think, I'll show you some numbers later. I have an aquaponic greenhouse log. I'll show you that at the end. But
What type of mushroom is that?
oyster mushrooms, they're super easy to grow, and we had plenty of that. So that plus chicken eggs makes you a full meal.
Wow.
So you're converting straw, and this you can produce so much, like 20. I forget the numbers, but I think we got like 20 pounds. We'll look at the numbers. I think we're 20 pounds per square foot. So you got a growing tower, 20 pounds. I mean, that's more than you could eat for like a long time.
And they do well in the greenhouse where it has a lot of light in them.
They do. We keep them in there to start, and we have brought them inside. We actually kept them both inside and in the greenhouse. You can grow them in the greenhouse just as well as indoors because they don't need light. They're decomposers.
Well, yeah, that's what I wondered. Yeah,
Yeah.
it'd be too much light for them. I didn't know. Yeah.
No, not even. Like they grew in there as well.
Okay.
So oyster mushrooms, what do? I described that. So you pack a big drum full of straw, you let it ferment. And just with anaerobic fermentation, you just close the top with some kind of a lid. You keep it full of water, so there's not a lot of oxygen in there. Then you drain the water, and then you pack your buckets with it. Here we actually describe how you generate the spawn itself. So you can get inoculation material just in a syringe. You can get the individual cells, which you then grow out in an enclosed jar, but it requires actually a clean lab environment. But thanks to Peter McCoy, he's an open source dude who works on mushrooms, he developed a way where if you use a jar, you put the sugar water in there, you drill a little hole, seal it up with silicone, RTV, like the high temperature silicone. Then you take a syringe and you inject the mushroom liquid in there, and that thing spawns out. And from that point, you've got a jar full of mushroom culture that's propagated. It lives on sugar at this stage. And then you inoculate whatever, like wood chips or whatever, with that. And that's what you do to spawn your buckets. So there's techniques for doing this. This is literally a clean room procedure that can be done in a basement. You can get a book called Radical Mycology by Peter McCoy. He's a great guy. He did the workshop with us here when we did the mushrooms. That's what lettuce starts look like. So you typically start things in perlite just to make these things easy to grow, so you can take them out to transplant into little 3D printed net pots that we used. Then you have the growing towers, which are just PVC. And how do we get those geometries there? I don't show it here, but you can go on a wiki, look at the details. What you do there is you take a piece of PVC, you mark your lines, you cut little slits where the holes are, and then you use like a Tabasco sauce bottle, you stick it in there and ream it out with a heat gun. And you get that nice tower where you can put your net pots. Now, the plants need some medium. This is reticulated foam. You buy that. It's a sponge, essentially. You can do that. Or you can probably 3D print this kind of material as well, so that would be pretty cool to do. It's called G-towers or growing towers. You ream out those holes like with a Coke bottle or a Tabasco sauce bottle. Heat gun. Once you heat gun it, it becomes pliable and then it solidifies, so you get this shape. He also did this hillbilly heater for heating the water. That's an easy way to get the solar energy. That gets hot up towards the ceiling, so you can heat your ponds. We did some of that nut propagation. We did a bunch of nut plant out. Here I described this, actually the 3D printed fittings. So basically I did like flood and drain in the things that you saw way before here. All those trays. Water drips from one to the next. So I filled up the top one, and with that 3D printed fitting, what that thing did was it allowed the water to drain rapidly into the bottom ones, but once it was, and then overflow back to the pond, but once it was pumped up, it had a little weep hole at the bottom, so it would drain out over an hour. So you get solid, nice wetting of the pots, all the pots in there. That took a specific fitting that does not exist off the shelf, so I had to design it and print it out. You know, the 3D printing gets you these complex geometries that if you don't have a custom fitting that you need, you can print it out. Here's some of the bok choy. Here's some maybe inefficiencies of deficiencies of nutrients you can see on that. There's pests, there's integrated pest management. So we released ladybugs which eat aphids. This is on sweet potatoes. So integrated pest management becomes a huge deal here, because if you got an intense, super packed growing environment, and then you're going to get a lot of pests, because that's what pests like to do. They like lush food, of which there is plenty. You don't have like wind and rain that could brush some of those bugs off. It gets hot and humid in there, so you got to make sure, like, without the integrated pest management, you're not going to go far. And that's the part which needs a lot of development. Like, for example, you would have these guys eating aphids as well. Whenever I found one, I would load it in there, put it in there, or little tree frogs eating your bugs as well.
Mm-hmm.
But for that, there are good resources on integrated pest management, but that's an absolute art. That takes like another PhD to master that whole process, to make a greenhouse like this replicable. Because I can guarantee you what's going to happen. You're going to start it off, looks beautiful, absolutely amazing, and then you get the pests after a cycle or a couple of cycles, and then you have to know what to do with it. And that's thrips and aphids are perhaps the main ones. There's cabbage moths. There's tons of stuff that,
White fly.
yeah, everything. So you have to have a remedy for each, and various techniques to do that. Yeah, I mean, energetics, I go through some considerations on, is there actually enough food in enough productivity in a greenhouse? The answer is actually yes, but maybe not from what grows inside. But if you bring in, absolutely, if you bring in straw for the mushroom produces like crazy. If you bring in external feed for the fish, the growth rates are so incredible that you can actually feed a complete diet for a couple of people. And if you look at just the solar energy coming in, you've got only so much of it. That's marginal. But if you can bring in straw, like some external inputs, like say you're breeding worms in there and whatever, there's human waste systems that can be integrated with it. So if you take this to the limit, I believe you can also do it without any feedstocks from the outside. If you consider all the compost and including human waste that can be processed, you can convert all of that into bugs, into worms, into black soldier fly larvae, and other things that you can do a lot. But I mean, just look at this. So this is a real deal. At a low stocking density, you can do 3,000 pounds of fish mass and 3,000 gallons of water. That's about how much we had in that pond. 3,000 gallons, both of those ponds. 300 pounds, in other words, 1 pound per 10 gallons of water. That's not high stocking density. That's a very manageable stocking density. Tilapia grow at 1% per day. 1%. It's huge. That's why we take tilapia. Tilapia grow pretty fast. 3 pounds of fish per day. That's more than food for a single person right there. Right? So if you eat fish and vegetables daily, there's a full diet right there. You can see the details on the tilapia page. But the point is, it's like, wow, there's so much productivity that can go in there, and that's the bottom line. Well, who feeds the fish? Yeah, mushroom yields. Oh yeah, so here we go. Oh yeah, I did. It was 12 pounds of mushrooms from 5 buckets from November to 10 to February 18 of 2016. They're 30% protein. So 12 pounds per square foot. That's 5 buckets and over 5 stacked up on the ground, 5-gallon pails. That takes a square foot. But think about that, 12 pounds per square foot. Huge. It's not bad, right? Mm-hmm. And then 1 pound of wet mushroom requires about 1 pound of dry straw. And that's how much they convert. So a couple more things. The dimensions here. Yeah, so digging with a backhoe, you dig this pond that's about 3,000 gallons. We had that other pond that we dug there, which was about 30,000 pounds. But
so you filled that pond in, no?
we semi-filled it in. We didn't want anyone to drown in there.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say.
Like
I
the
don't know
dog.
if
Was your
ponds
pond
are-
at that other one?
No, there's like, it's half filled in, but Katrina felt like the dogs are gonna drown in there in the winter if they fall through, so
Oh.
we kind of filled it in halfway. It's still there, there's a lot of frogs in there and stuff,
Okay.
and a lot of cattails.
Yeah, you can
But-
make the pool into that system.
Mhm.
Yeah. So in this idea we had, where we had the water catchment, like if you're short on water in an area that has rainfall, you can refill this pond from rainwater. So in fact, that's exactly what we did in a micro house, the first greenhouse. Whenever it rained, the ponds got topped off, you know. So you didn't have to feed it water because it evaporates a lot and all of that, and there's a lot of transpiration from the plants that happens. Duckweed, so further use of vertical space. Think of duckweed gutters along the back wall. 10 rows, 30 feet long each. Yeah, that fits on the back wall. You can get 1 kilogram of harvested duckweed per day. That's significant. The tilapia eat that. That's high
I was just
protein.
gonna ask, was that for the fish?
Yeah, and we've done that just marginally. We didn't build out the full set of all the rows.
I missed, did you say why you chose tilapia other than they grow fast?
Yeah, they grow fast and they're decent quality of food. There's another fish, I forget what
Because
the
that's
name.
for human eating is
Human.
what you're using the fish. Okay.
Yeah, they're vegetarians, so they can eat. They're actually omnivorous. They can eat bugs, but they can eat only vegetables as well. Like if you just feed them vegetative matter, like for example duckweed or azolla, they can survive on that.
Duckweed is a weed, I think.
Now with things like duckweed and azolla, those things grow fast. They can, under optimal conditions, they double per day.
Mm.
So you've got those 30 rows, 10 rows, 30 feet long. Imagine how much there is. You can skim if that doubles in the proper way. Now you have to figure out some hydraulics there, like how you're washing that. If you kind of just run a pump in there to wash some of the duckweed into the pond by itself, you know, I mean, automation is a big deal here because you don't want to be in there like the greenhouse itself would be a full-time job if you tried to manage it. You're trying to take care of it, so you got to do the automated things. Like this would be an automated timer to spill that duckweed into the pond. The water, of course, has to be timed.
Wait, you could actually break
So
it
you
off
have-
or whatever and put it in?
Well, I mean,
Harvest it?
the self-harvesting here would mean that you're pumping into the very top row. You have to figure out the exact pump rate that would just make it flow slowly enough and have whatever stops and whatever overflow mechanisms from one row to the next. Bam, bam, bam. They're just going down to the point that you're pretty much doing like one exchange of surface per day in terms of the duckweed that falls in it. That would take you some figuring out, some messing around till you get it. I've never seen anything like that, where you have some automated system to do that. But
And
they'll
that
be
is-
great. So then you don't have to worry about it. It's one less. You don't have to feed the fish feed themselves from this automated
How are
water.
you having the duckweed regrow though? How is it
It must be
reproducing?
Jesus. I don't know. They just propagate. They double
So-
every day. So they divide. It's a
So
plant.
you're not emptying the whole row?
No,
Okay, that's what I'm
we would
asking.
it all grows in every single row, but that means you have to figure out how exactly the hydraulics design works here.
So you're
What
not
flow
emptying
rates.
it.
Yeah, you can't
Okay,
empty it because
got
then
it.
the fish would eat it and you have no more duckweed.
That's
You're
what I
done.
was asking, okay.
So you have to
allow
have
it
some
stay,
mechanisms.
And then it reproduces and reproduces.
Yeah, which is an interesting student project.
If I had to guess, you would let one of them drain rapidly, and a bunch of duckweed would stick to the side. And so when you refill it, that duckweed would stay in and be properly.
Yeah, maybe that works. Yeah, you could do like a little maybe little stops on the side. So there's always you can say dump it all, and then a little bit that stays that propagates to back to full on, and then you do it again at particular intervals. Closing the loop.
The duckweed uses, like, the duckweed feeds off of nitrogen though, so it feeds off the poop of water. Like it
Exactly. So that would be
Yeah.
closing the loop.
Okay.
Yeah.
Duckweed in towers can do up to very dirty water. If your biodigester is not functioning, that could be the backup, because those things love
So
nutrients.
treatment plants use duckweed to convert.
And
like,
I don't know if you have experience with redworms. I
Like
mean,
fishing
they're
redworms, the little ones?
the
Yeah.
fly redwoods.
no, just redworms. There's
Like
the
fish-
standard earthworm, but it's a different species. It's the
Skinnier,
it's the
smaller.
red one.
Yeah. I used
Oh,
to
those
fish
are
with them.
amazing. I had a I've got a lot of experience with them. They eat
Yeah,
compost
redworms,
bins and things like that.
redworms, and
If you yeah,
no.
if you don't, oh, you're gonna love this thing, because they basically, if you put them if you do a worm bin, you can dump it full of compost. I had a bin like this. I would just throw all my waste in there, and the next day you look, it's all eaten up and it's all turned into soil. It's insane. So redworms are extremely powerful for the decomposition part. Grass or hay from the outside. Who does that feed? If you have rabbits in there, if you have compost that other things like either the redworms or other critters in there use. Outdoor pond integration in the summer. Well, in the summer you can have a little channel for your tilapia to swim to your outdoor pond. And then maybe in the winter you can bring them, bring them back in because they're going to freeze in the winter. Or that's how you harvest them. Let them.
They would definitely get
Die
eaten
off.
in my outdoor pond.
Yeah.
Raccoons?
Oh, everything. I mean, we have muskrats in there that'll eat them, raccoons that'll eat them, birds,
Yeah.
like egrets, like just
Yeah.
So you just need an indoor one.
other fish,
And-
snakes.
And another thing for closing loop is algae, like human edible algae, right? Like spirulina. Those are superfoods, and they have high growth rates in controlled environments. So if you can integrate that, you're talking about a lot more human food as well. So there's a lot of stuff that you can do in there. But it does not sound like rocket science. It actually does sound like rocket science. This is more than rocket science. This is a complex integrated ecosystem. So,
I mean, that's the kind of stuff they use on space station.
but that's
I was gonna say, it kind of, moving towards the biosphere where it's a closed loop,
Yeah.
closed system. Yeah.
So that's our experience so far. Next goal in mind is that we make this a standard option for our houses. But to do that is a ton of R&D to get the integrated pest management, where then you can either like help people generate those various beneficial insects, ship them over. Like we would get shipments of ladybugs just to take care of. Yeah. Ladybugs, I mean, for the aphids, right? Ladybugs, I mean, they just destroy the aphids really quickly. So, that works. You have to get good at it. So we're not there yet. I'm not going to claim that. We can do it, and we can get high productivity. The thing that kind of where we stopped in this system was the water flow in the towers. That became a problem because after about a year, it started getting clogged up with maybe too much fish waste or whatever. So you want as much waste to go in there as possible, but we had just little tiny 1/8 inch emitters up there, which was great if the water is flowing, but if it's not and it's the summer, your tower is going to like wilt in the summertime because the water they evaporate so fast. So those kind of clogs, what it meant, I had to go up there like every night. I would have to unclog them. That became a total chore. I'm spending like 10 minutes every day doing it. It got old, so we shut it down after that. But simple solutions are there. Like you got to get the water flow right, or maybe like timed high flow, like from one tower to the next. That you got a much bigger aperture, because if you've got a big aperture, then you need a huge pump. If say you do like a 1/2 inch, which would never clog, right? But then your pumping is going to be like 20, 30 gallons per minute if you've got like 50 towers. It'll be 25 gallons per minute. That's huge. That's a lot of energy to pump that amount of fluid up there at pressure. So anyway, details, all to be overcome or with easy solutions. Probably an easiest thing is, like I mentioned, this thing about water timing controller for the grow towers, yeah, you just turn on one. You would have, say, a half inch thing. You use a tiny pump, like a 2-gallon per minute pump. You just have one outlet that's half inch. Then you cycle from one to the next. So you have to use a controller. And washing machine solenoids are a very cheap controller. That's like $1 a channel. You know, to turn what? How do you control water to turn it on and off automatically? You could use a
Timer?
yeah, but you got 50 of them if you do one tower by one tower. So yeah, I mean you can use 50 timers. That's going to be $500 or $1,000. So you got to get into low cost ways to do this. Things like the lowest cost off the shelf right now is washer solenoids, which are like a couple of bucks. So you know you can do that combined with an Arduino controller, and you've got your watering system. Things like that. Let's take a look at, just last thing I want to show you, the aquaponic greenhouse log, since we haven't some of the things that happen in there. Oh, what am I doing there? Not happening. Yeah, so I mean, this was like from 2019, from 2015 to 2019.
Wow.
But we kept various results here. There's some pictures. But everything that happened here, some pictures. For example, we propagated figs. You can take a fig cutting and you can propagate them readily from cuttings.
Still have those. Those fig trees are still in there.
Yep. Yeah. I don't know. Sweet potatoes we did. They didn't turn out too great.
You were doing those tower things. Have you ever done any with tomatoes or strawberries?
Yeah, we had tomatoes and strawberries in here. We got like cherry tomatoes. We let this thing basically. Once we stopped taking care of it, all we had left was like kale and like tons of cherry tomatoes that just seeded themselves all over, and we're just picking them left and right. But here I describe some of this irrigation system of how we watered the nuts. You know, like documentation of the, like for example 3D printed fittings for dividers, like that. That's a 3D printed barb right there. Those are those irrigation things. You can take a look at that, but yeah. I mean, there's various notes on what grew and not, and so yeah. Any questions on this aquaponics? I mean, it's a very exciting thing because you can grow so much food in there if you do this. So I think it's an exciting part.
One that already has fish in it, and you just pipe water from that, rather than having it inside of the enclosure.
So the situation is you've got an external pond.
Yep.
And what's your goal? You're trying to say
Just basically set this up, but instead of having the fish in the area,
Mhm.
you would basically pump water in
from a
and out,
pond.
from a pond and back
Yeah.
to the pond.
Yeah, that's you're talking about getting the fertilization of all the
Yeah.
plants. That would definitely help it. Now depends on your stocking density of your pond, but if, in our ponds, if say there's like 300 pounds of fish in there, then there's a lot of nutrients in there. So in a big pond thing, it depends how clean your water is. If it's very clean, then there's not much nutrient in there. So it's just a matter of how much nutrient is present in that water. But that would definitely,
Okay.
if you have some pond with duckweed, there's a lot of nutrients in there, and that probably would work to fertilize your plants pretty well.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
We can get weed ducking stuff. Yeah.
So when you were collecting the rainwater, do you just collect it and let it go? Do you test it? Like,
No, just
What
straight
is
from the
it?
roof into the pond.
okay, so there's no issue. I don't know. I've never even tried with all the, what do you call, acid rain or junk. Like, I've never tested.
We don't have that many chemical factories out here.
Okay, that's what I was saying. I have no idea if it's an issue or it's just.
mean,
Could be. I mean, there's all kinds of heavy metals in the air, nonetheless. So,
Microplastics everywhere.
I would say.
Well, yeah, so,
So
I
the
didn't know if
best-
you had a filtration system or it just went straight in like as if they're outside.
yeah. For example, the plants are a filtration system because they, I think, once you go through the trophic levels of one thing eats another, a lot of times, like, the question would be, okay, this plant, it grows in radioactive waste, like mushrooms. Mushrooms actually can grow in radioactive waste or like real toxins. I don't know if you can eat them, but they break down some of that matter. So if you have a lot of mycological activity here, that would break down a lot of the various wastes. So the more you have of these, like whatever the soil cycles are in there, all the kinds of bacteria working on there, they might take up some of those nutrients or not. I mean, we haven't gotten into the details of that.
Okay, no, that's fine.
But I think a sound idea is if you've got mushrooms and worms, those things I think take out a lot of nutrients, a lot of different chemicals from the system. So if just like out in nature, over time things get decomposed. Now, if you're concerned about it, you might do maybe an ozonator off the rooftop water. That will deactivate
just
heavy
curious,
metals too.
'cause
That works on heavy metals.
They use cattails to mitigate toxic water.
Mm-hmm. And did you know that the cattail
Don't
roots?
eat the cattails that you're using for mitigation, though.
Yeah. What do you eat on a cattail? The root. Yeah.
So good. I make
I
my
haven't-
kids eat it every year at camp.
Oh yeah. I haven't eaten it. That's cool.
They have
Tastes
to
like
eat,
milk.
yeah.
Really? Okay.
It's like similar to like a cross between an onion or celery.
Yeah.
we had it in our lake, so no,
What? Yeah, well, did anyone make you eat it? 'Cause
no,
I'm just saying
no.
I make the kids
Yeah.
eat it. Like
Cattails.
today, you have to. We call it wilder lunch. Whatever they can forage, that's their meal that day.
So
I love that.
cattails, a lot of people just pull up cattail, eat the roots, and I'm like, no, that's not the edible part. It's the you pull it, yeah, the stalk, the bottom of the stalk. If you can snap it off, then that's edible. But if it like bends to cut it off, that's not edible.
Good job. Thanks for explaining. Yeah.
He's eating it.
Yeah.
Told you, I make the kids eat
It's like celery, but without the strings.
whatever they can find.
Cool. Does that have good nutrition?
Yeah, it's actually a pretty good carb. Like as far as there's not a lot of like carbs kicking around out there naturally, but that one's
Yeah.
an easy one.
When are you going next?
What's
Next
that?
summer.
When's your next cattail
May.
lunch day?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. Any other questions on aquaponics, or can wrap it up here? Yeah, but definitely exciting work to be done if we figure out the integrated pest management. So yeah, we'll leave it off here. Thank you.